May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month, and today is Melanoma Monday. Melanoma is the deadliest type of cancer, and it's very common, especially for those of us here in Houston. Joining me right now is Dr. Mirwat Sami and her patient, Betsy Bremer. Dr. Sami, when I mentioned that it's kind of common for people here in Houston, why are we more susceptible to skin cancer because of where we live?
Well, thank you for having us. It's because of the sun exposure risk. You know, we have
all year long, right?
All year long, and I think that a lot of people have this misconception that if it's cloudy outside, like a day like today, that they don't need to put on any UV protection. And we know for a fact that especially in the daytime hours, UV radiation is at its highest, it's at its peak. So it's important to use sunscreen and sun protection all throughout the day, all year round, especially in Texas.
Yeah, and Betsy, tell me about your type of cancer. Where on your body did you get this cancer?
So I had two spots. One was directly on my eyelid, and then was kind of like on the bridge of my nose right next to it. And so I just noticed some bumps that weren't going away. One of them seemed like kind of a pimple that just kept coming back in the same spot. And so when I got those checked out, they both ended up being cancerous. And so then we went forward with the removal and then rebuilding process.
Yeah, and how devastating was that? I mean, were you worried that you were going to lose your eyelid at any point?
Yeah, I was pretty unsure of what my face was going to look like afterward, just because it was the full thickness of my eyelid. And so just like hearing about how much would have to be removed and then what the next steps would be, there was a pretty big period of uncertainty during that.
And what do you do for a living?
So currently I'm a teacher. I work in the classroom, but for a long time I was in outdoor education. So I was taking kids snorkeling and kayaking and hiking and on canoe trips. And so I was outside a lot, just constant sun exposure.
And that's why I asked, because Dr. Sami, aren't some professions more at risk of getting skin cancer?
Absolutely. And you know, we're finding an increasing incidence of skin cancer. 1 in 5 Americans are going to be diagnosed with it in their lifetime. So that's a really staggering number. And we're seeing it across the board in all skin types, you know, skin of color, our Latinos, our Hispanics, there's a 20% rise in melanoma specifically amongst them. So, you know, certainly certain professions, we're talking about like people that are outdoors a lot, our teachers that are out there with our kids, and those are all those peak UV.
And she was getting the reflection from the water too.
That's right. That is absolutely correct.
Yeah. And so what are the type, like obviously Betsy looks great, and having to take so much of the eyelid would have people worried, like she said, like she didn't know what her face was going to look like. So what are the types of techniques that are offered now that you can, you know, come out looking like not even noticing that something happened?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the eyelid area, you know, we worry about not just the aesthetics, right? It's not just about the appearance, but it's also functionality, because your eyelid is meant to protect your eyeball, protect your vision, lubricate your eye. And so getting that functionality back and preserving that is so critical. We like working with Mohs surgeons. A Mohs surgeon is a dermatologist that's going to remove the skin cancer, making sure that we have negative margins, which means we've removed it all, but then leaving behind, it's sort of like think of it as a tissue sparing procedure, a technique that allows us to take out the exact amount, piece by piece, until we've got those clear margins, and then that way we're not, you know, taking a large chunk of normal tissue as well. So that's been great, especially in areas like the face, the eyelids, and it's been great for patients, you know.
Yeah. What did you think?
The most part was probably scarier because it was, you know, before the fix, but it was comforting to know that they were looking at the cells like right as they took them to make sure that all of the cancer cells were gone.
Interesting.
So I felt a lot better afterwards, just knowing that the recurrence wasn't going to happen there.
Yeah. Do you have any concerns now for recurrence?
Not necessarily that they didn't get all of the cells, just that I am genetically predisposed to it, and just staying ahead of it and not letting it get to the point where so much would need to be removed and we can do something about it.
And how long ago was this now? A year and a half ago?
This was about 3 years ago.
Oh, 3 years ago?
I believe the initial diagnosis was in the spring of 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Very good. Dr. Sami, when she talked about like originally like it kind of formed as like a pimple or something, are those the normal signs of this type of skin cancer?
So any little nodule, and they're typically not painful, which is why, you know, most people aren't even alerted to it. It looks like a sty that never got painful, but it's something like a pimple, a nodule, something that the skin keeps breaking down painlessly. It heals a little bit and then it comes back. So these recurrent little nodules, areas that are red, scaly, those are all sort of those telltale signs that we want to look out for.
Yeah.
And especially today, you know, we try to raise awareness with as far as doing these regular skin checks on yourself as well. For melanomas, you know, one of those signs is the hyperpigmentation and sort of a variegated, uneven, asymmetric kind of involvement of the skin. So, you know, skin checks are really important, and we talk about sun protection all the time, but doing those skin checks on ourselves, and then as soon as we see something that's a little suspicious, just like Betsy did, go and get it checked out.
Yeah, well, good for you, because I mean that's so easy to dismiss as something kind of harmless. Like,
And at
if
this
it's not
age,
hurting you.
she's so young. You know, for her to have to deal with this at this age, I think was probably a little bit more traumatic, right?
It's a little scary.
Yeah. Are you happy with the results?
Absolutely. I am blown away that you can tell as little as you can.
Yeah. Well, wonderful, and we are so happy for you too. And thank you both for coming in. Is there anything else that you'd like people to know as today is Melanoma Monday? Anything that you want people to take away from this?
Well,
I would say that you can still enjoy all of those outdoor things that you want to enjoy. Just do it safely with sunscreen and sun shirts and hats and all of those things to make sure that you're protecting your
Is that
skin
what you
at the
do
same
now?
time. Yeah, I look like people call me a Dementor because I have this like gray
Covered
sun hoodie
head to toe. I don't
hide in
blame
it.
you. Yeah. Anything else, Dr. Sami?
well, that's about it. You know, just enjoy it. It's all safe sun habits, and keep doing those skin checks. That's so important. So today, let's just remind everybody about Melanoma Monday and do those skin checks and get yourself like regularly evaluated.
Yeah, and I do have Betsy's full story up on our website, clicktohouston.com, with a list of those subtle symptoms and professions that are most at risk for this cancer. Thank you both for coming in studio
Thank you for covering
to
this.
talk to me.
Appreciate it.